Your neighbor just put up a fence and now you cannot get to your own backyard. You walk outside one morning, coffee in hand, and there it is. 6 feet of solid wood cutting off the only path you have been using for the last 12 years. You stand there staring at it thinking this cannot be legal, and you are right to think that. But what you do next will either fix this problem for good or land you in a courtroom paying someone else's legal fees. Most people get this wrong, and it costs them thousands. Ever wonder what the law actually says when a neighbor's fence blocks your access to your own property? Not what your uncle thinks, not what some guy on a forum posted in 2009. The actual law. Because there is a massive difference between what feels fair and what a judge will enforce. And some of the moves that seem perfectly reasonable to you right now are the exact moves that will get you sued. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what your rights are, what steps to take in order, and which mistakes to avoid, so you come out of this with your access restored and your wallet intact. Quick note before we dive in. This is legal education, not legal advice. Access laws change by state, county, and even city. Always check your local rules before you act. Good. Let us get into it. Most people think that if you own property, you automatically have the right to reach every part of it from every direction. That sounds logical. You bought it. You pay taxes on it. It is yours. But property access does not work like a video game where your character can walk anywhere inside the highlighted zone. In real life, your legal right to access your property depends on things like easements, public roads, zoning laws, and yes, what your neighbor builds and where they build it. Think of it like this. You rent an apartment on the 3rd floor. The stairs and the hallway are not yours. But you have a legal right to use them because without them, you cannot reach your home. That right does not disappear just because the building owner decides to put a locked gate at the bottom of the staircase. The same principle applies to property access. If a path or route is the only way you can reach part of your land, blocking it is not just rude, it may be illegal. Now let us talk about the first scenario because this is the most common one. You have been using a path along the side of your neighbor's property to get to your backyard for years, maybe decades. There is no other way in. One day, your neighbor puts up a fence, and that path is gone. Your gut reaction is to grab a saw and cut a section out of that fence. It is blocking your access to your own land. You have every right. Wrong. Cutting that fence is destruction of property. Full stop. It does not matter that the fence is blocking you. It does not matter that you have used that path for 20 years. The moment you damage or destroy your neighbor's property, you become the one breaking the law. Think of it like this. Someone parks their car in front of your driveway. You cannot get out. That is their fault. But if you take a baseball bat to their windshield, you are the one getting arrested. The car was wrong, but your response was worse. Here is what you actually do. Step 1. Talk to your neighbor. I know that sounds obvious, but you would be amazed how many people skip this and go straight to lawyers. Sometimes your neighbor genuinely did not realize the fence was blocking your only access point. Maybe they hired a contractor who put it in the wrong spot. A calm conversation can solve this in an afternoon. Step 2. If talking does not work, check for an easement. An easement is a legal right to use someone else's land for a specific purpose. And here is the part that surprises most people. You might already have one and not even know it. Easements can be written into your property deed. They can also be created by years of use. This is called a prescriptive easement, and it means that if you have been using that path openly and continuously for a certain number of years, the law may recognize your right to keep using it, even though the land belongs to your neighbor. The number of years varies by state. In some places, it is 5 years. In others, it is 10 or even 20. But the key factors are the same almost everywhere. You used the path openly, not secretly. Your neighbor could see you doing it. You used it continuously. Not once in a while, but regularly. And you used it without permission. That last part trips people up. If your neighbor gave you permission to use the path, it is not prescriptive. It is permissive. And permissive use can be revoked at any time. Step 3. If you find an easement or believe you qualify for a prescriptive one, send your neighbor a written letter. Not a text, not an email. A physical letter, ideally sent through certified mail so you have proof they received it. In the letter, you state that you have a legal right to access your property through that path. You reference the easement or the prescriptive use, and you ask them to remove the fence or provide an opening within a reasonable time frame. 30 days is standard. Step 4. If they ignore the letter, you file a lawsuit. Specifically, you file for an injunction, which is a court order forcing them to remove the obstruction. You can also file for a declaratory judgment, which is the court officially confirming that your easement exists. This is where having a surveyor and a real estate attorney matters. The surveyor confirms the exact boundaries and the attorney handles the legal filing. Now here is the twist that nobody talks about. What if you do not have an easement and you have not been using the path long enough to claim a prescriptive one? What if your neighbor's fence is entirely on their property and it just happens to cut off your access? This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because in many jurisdictions, if there is no easement, no prescriptive right, and the fence is on their land, your neighbor might be completely within their rights to block that path. Legally, they own the land. Legally, they can fence it. The fact that it inconveniences you is not their legal problem. But do not panic yet. There is another option called an easement by necessity. This applies when your property is landlocked, meaning there is literally no other way to access it except through someone else's land. If you can prove that the fence makes your property inaccessible, a court can create an easement even if one never existed before. You will likely have to compensate your neighbor for the use of their land, but you will get your access back. Let me give you the second scenario. Your neighbor builds a fence, and it is not just blocking your path. It is actually on your property. Part of the fence crosses the property line and sits on land that belongs to you. This happens more often than you think, especially with older properties where the original markers have shifted or disappeared. Your instinct says tear it down. It is on your land. You should be able to remove anything on your land. Not so fast. Even if the fence is on your property, you generally cannot just destroy it yourself. In most states, you need to follow a process. First, you get a survey done. A licensed surveyor will mark the exact property lines and give you a legal document showing where the boundary is. This costs anywhere from $300 to $1,000 depending on your area and the size of the lot. Once you have the survey, you notify your neighbor in writing. You show them the survey results. You tell them the fence is on your property. You give them a deadline to move it. If they refuse or ignore you, then you go to court. The court can order them to remove the fence at their own expense, and in some cases, you can recover the cost of the survey too. But here is where it gets dangerous. If that fence has been on your property for a long time, your neighbor might claim adverse possession. This is the legal principle that says if someone uses your land openly and continuously for a certain number of years, they can actually gain legal ownership of it. The fence becomes evidence that they have been occupying that strip of land. And if enough time has passed, a judge might rule that the land under the fence now belongs to them. This is why timing matters. Every month you wait, your legal position gets weaker. Every year that fence sits there, your neighbor's claim gets stronger. Do not wait. Third scenario, your neighbor's fence does not block your access and it is not on your property. But it is so close to the property line that you cannot maintain your side. Maybe you have a wall or a hedge or a drainage pipe that runs along the boundary. The fence is technically on their land, but it is pressed right up against the line, making it impossible for you to do any work on your side. Most people think there is nothing they can do here. The fence is on their land. End of story. Actually, no. Many municipalities have setback requirements. These are rules that say structures, including fences, must be built a certain distance from the property line. It could be 6 inches. It could be 2 feet. It depends on your local code. If your neighbor's fence violates the setback requirement, you can file a complaint with your local code enforcement office. They will inspect the fence, and if it violates the code, they will order your neighbor to move it. Here is the part that shocks people. Code enforcement violations can come with daily fines. That means every day the fence stays in violation, your neighbor owes money. That is a powerful motivator. You do not even need a lawyer for this step. Just call your local building or zoning department and ask about fence setback requirements in your area. Now, let us talk about the mistake that gets more people sued than anything else in neighbor fence disputes. And it happens even when you are completely in the right. The mistake is self-help. Self-help means taking matters into your own hands instead of going through the legal system. You tear down the fence yourself. You move it yourself. You block their driveway in retaliation. You dump the fence panels on their lawn. Every single one of these actions can get you sued for property damage, trespassing, or harassment. Even if the fence was illegal, even if it was on your property, even if you had every right to want it gone. Think of it like being a kid in school. Someone takes your pencil. You know it is yours. Everyone knows it is yours. But if you punch the kid and take it back, you are the one going to the principal's office. The teacher does not care that the pencil was yours. The teacher cares that you punched someone. The court works the same way. The judge does not care that you were right about the fence. The judge cares that you destroyed property or trespassed. Your only safe move is to document, notify, and let the legal system handle enforcement. Photograph the fence, get a survey, send certified letters, file complaints with code enforcement. And if none of that works, file a lawsuit. It is slower. It is more frustrating. But it is the only path that protects you. Let me give you a quick summary of everything we covered. If a neighbor's fence blocks your access, check for existing easements in your deed. If none exist, determine if you qualify for a prescriptive easement through years of open use. If the property is landlocked, pursue an easement by necessity through the court. If the fence is on your property, get a survey, notify in writing, and go to court if needed. If the fence violates local setback codes, file a complaint with code enforcement. And no matter what, never take matters into your own hands. 3 things you should do this week. 1. Pull your property deed and look for any recorded easements. 2. Call a licensed surveyor and get a quote for a boundary survey. 3. Look up your local fence setback requirements online or by calling your zoning office. These 3 steps cost almost nothing, and they give you the foundation for everything else. Every month you wait makes your position weaker. Adverse possession clocks are ticking. Prescriptive easement windows are closing. And that fence is not going to move itself. Hit subscribe if this helped. And drop a comment below. Has a neighbor ever blocked your access with a fence? What happened? I read every single comment, and some of your stories end up in future videos. I will see you in the next one.